So the question was, have you ever been laid off? And I've been around this industry for a long time. It's 2024. I got my first job as a software developer back in 1999. Ugh. So 25 years I've been working in this industry. I was a consultant for a couple years. Went to work for a .com company. Remember when startups were called .coms? And worked there for a little bit, bounced between a couple of enterprises, and then went to work at another web startup for a few years. And that last startup that I worked at, was called Frontline. They're now called Frontline Education. They're a company here in Southeast Pennsylvania. They've acquired other companies, and they've got offices all over North America at this point. But at the time that I joined them, I was employee number 25. And we were building an application that was for automated substitute teacher placement. So think about it. Teacher's going to be is sick in the morning, can't make it into school. They've got to call somebody at the school and say, "Hey, I can't make it. You're going to need to call in a substitute teacher," right? And as kids, gosh, you either dreaded or you loved when the substitute teacher came in, because the substitute either didn't get a lesson plan, and that meant we were going to watch a movie all through class, or the substitute did get the lesson plans and were going to go easy on us, and because they didn't know what they were teaching, so you could kind of goof off and have fun through the class. So what this application did was, instead of having to call somebody at the school and tell them that they're going to be out sick, the teacher could go online or call into a phone system and log in with their credentials and mark themselves as absent. And that absence would first be made available to substitute teachers to go search for, like a job board, and submit and say, "Hey, I can fill that job and come in and work." The other side of that was, if the substitutes didn't fill the position within a certain time, by going out and shopping and trying to find a position for the day, he would start making outbound phone calls and automatically offering, with an interactive voice response system, an IVR system, automatically offering that position for folks to be able to say, "Yes, I'll come in and work." And it had a pecking order that it would go through to find folks that were most reliable, most trusted, and other credentials that were specified by the school. Really cool, simple idea for a system, but there was a lot of business logic in there that was fun to build and write. And my responsibility when I joined the company was, we started building the system that wasn't made for education, but it was made for hospitals, for nurses, and for other venues. So we took out the concept of education and allowed other skills and configuration to be inserted instead. And we worked on that for a few years, up until 2009, 2010. And they had an idea. They wanted to go and go after more of the education space. So they brought me over to lead a team. I was the lead engineer working on a team that built an application that would do teacher performance reviews. And it would work really nicely with the other applications. So you had a suite of applications for the school to use. Well, that performance application, we're building, and we're going out, we're getting all the fact finding and the credentials and information we need from the various states, so that we can get accredited and make sure that it fits in with the various review standards that the governments have for public education. And we found out the hard way that there were several systems that were accredited and partnered, and effectively blocked our application from being able to enter the market, because we didn't have the partnerships, we didn't have the business relationship to create and market that product to the public school systems. In 24 of the 50 states, we weren't going to be able to sell our product. That's a big chunk of business that they were going to lose. At this time, I wasn't too thrilled with the application that we were building. And quite frankly, I was seeing and hearing folks that were doing a little bit of the influencer business, talking to other developers, and it was intriguing me. I got to speak at my local user group. I got to travel and speak at a couple other places that were interesting to me, that were local on the East Coast of the United States. And it was getting more and more intriguing to me. And the folks at Telerik Software reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in interviewing for a position as a developer advocate? So I was already talking to them when the news came down that the application wasn't going to be able to be sold. It was a Monday morning after a weekend where, quite frankly, I was invited to the Telerik office in Boston to interview, and I went up there and interviewed, came back to the frontline office the next day. Before I even got in the building, my boss is waiting outside. Hey, Jeff, how's it going? Good to see you. And I'm thinking, hey, it's my buddy Ralph. We're gonna have a cup of coffee, sit down morning in the kitchen, have a conversation, talk like friends do at work. He says, let's come over here and chat for a little bit in the front conference room. I'm like, uh-oh. I worked on the second floor of the building. He wasn't letting me past the front door. Uh-oh. Walked in, and there's the HR manager sitting there, and they tell me they're laying me off. It's a punch to the gut when you're told you're going to be laid off after you've worked any amount of time for a company. And this was, I'd been working for the company about 4 or 5 years at this point, I think. And it was a company, a product, a series of products that I really enjoyed working with. And the business logic and the tools and what we had built, because at this point, I was hired as employee number 25. At this point, there's about 250, 300 people working for the company. So it's grown, and business is going great. And they decided to lay me off on a product that somebody didn't do all their research before deciding and assigning and hiring more folks to go work on and build. And as the lead engineer guy on the product, I was one of the more expensive salaries working on it. So they sat me down and they said, yeah, we're going to have to let you go. The product isn't going to be able to sell. We need to refocus our efforts on XYZ. And I was hearing that, and I was, for some reason, desperate. Like, well, wait a sec. Why can't I just go work on the other product again? What about that? No, we're refocusing our efforts. We're changing our business strategy. Okay. Well, I packed up. I said, can I at least go back to my desk and pack up my personal things, or I've got some photos of my family and whatever at the desk. Sure. Walked up, took a box, packed up my stuff. Nobody was really at the office at that point, and walked out. And that was the last time I was in the building. And it's a awful feeling driving away from the office knowing that you're never going to work there again, and it wasn't your decision. It's awful. But companies change strategy. Companies that you work for, as much as they say they believe in family and that the folks that work with us, they're our friends, they're our family, we want to protect them, we want to engage them. At some point, they do. However, at another point, they're also a business. Privately held businesses, more so than publicly held businesses, have to be a little bit more aggressive. They have less regulation on them, and they need to protect their profits, their margins. Because at the end of the day, there's someone who's an owner out there who has to pay for all this. And if a business plan is not succeeding, is not going in the direction that they need to support the business, they've got to make hard decisions. And it's awful when those decisions are made. But sometimes one door closes and another one opens. In my case, I was driving home in tears in the car, calling my wife and telling her, you know what? I just got laid off. We've got 2 kids that are under the age of 5 years old. We just bought a new house. We're going to figure this out. And I got a call from Telerik later that day, and they offered me the position. I wasn't out of work for a week, and I was offered a position as a developer advocate at Telerik, and I went and I joined up, and I was happily employed, teaching folks about ASP.NET, the framework, the library that I was using to build those websites at Frontline Education, and had a great time, pushing the web widget, web component market forward. This was at a time where Node didn't really hit yet, right? This was 2010, 2011. And being able to deliver components, pretty cool stuff. A lot of fun, had a great time speaking, working with the community in there. And I like to think I was doing it so well that I got noticed by Microsoft, and they offered me a chance to come in and interview for similar job working there, and the rest is history. So that was 2012 that I joined. 2012? No, it was 2014 that I joined Microsoft, and it's been a fantastic ride. I'm going to be celebrating 10 years at Microsoft in November. So what I would suggest to you is when it happens to all of us, you're going to be dismissed from a company for one reason or another. We like to have the choice ourselves when it happens, but it's not always the case. When it does, yeah, it's a punch to the gut. But you know what? You're really good at what you do. You can find that next job. You can find that next opportunity, that next idea, that next project that is going to drive you and make you happy for however long it might be. Don't worry about it. What's done is done. Those folks made their decision, and you can move forward and you can do great things with your next business, with the next company you work for. Everything will be okay. All right? Nothing is permanent. Move forward, be positive, and you can be successful. So that's my story. That's what happened with me getting laid off from a tech job, and it opened the door for me to start doing all this stuff.